From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
I love the Crofton Dam race because it's in a setting that's just gorgeous. You know, we've got our state park setting, we're right by the lake. You've got the small town vibe. You've got the hospitality of all of our volunteers. And I love to kayak. I do not like to swim, so this type of triathlon is definitely my jam.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to the 25th season and this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, Crofton's Dam Race. We have two guests joining us today. Shirley Wickman is here in the studio. Shirley is the Industry Relations Coordinator for the Nebraska Tourism Commission. Joining us via Zoom is Heidi Marsh. Heidi is one of two race directors for Crofton's Dam Race. Thank you both so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Shirley, we are going to start with you. Before we talk about all that Nebraska has to offer, including that race, tell us about the Nebraska Tourism Commission.
Well, the Nebraska Tourism Commission, we're very small. There's only 11 people in our department, and we do have a board of 11 commissioners that are spread throughout the state in different districts. And what we do is we try to promote our state as best we can with the lodging tax dollars that we get, and that is the only way that we're funded is with the lodging tax. And so we just go out and we either do group tours to get motor coaches here, or we just go and talk to the communities and try to help them promote their areas, their little hidden gems that they have, and attractions, museums, anything that they have across the state.
All right, so how did you become involved in all of this?
I started back in the mid-'80s is when I actually started. And it was just something that I thought, you know, I'm always talking about the state. I'm always promoting it. I'm always out there. My husband and I just love to go out to antiquing and do the back roads on a motorcycle and just see what there is. And then I go to people and say, you know, if you ever get to Martinsburg, you got to stop at Bob's and have a burger. Or if you ever go here, you got to stop and have a hot chocolate, or you got to go to a winery. So I just kind of had it in my blood, and that's kind of how I got started working for the state. It was just meant to be.
Well, I got to tell you, I had a lot of fun on your website. I did run across one of the tabs is regions and cities. So we're going to start big picture perspective here today. Okay, we're going to take a look at this map, and as we're looking at it, tell us the why. What's important for viewers to know on here?
Okay, well, the state is really rather large. You know, it's over 77,000 square miles, and when you think about it's long, and we like people to say, you know, what is there to see in the northwest part of our state, or the southwest, or the southeast? I'm coming up from Kansas City. What is there to do? So we kind of can tell them how to go through the state and what they're going to see in each little area that they go through. And it's just kind of a little road map, and then we kind of dig a little deeper, and that way then they can kind of see the different cities. And if they say that they're going like to Chadron, then we can kind of tell them, well, if you're coming up again from Kansas City, maybe you want to take Highway 75, and then you want to get to Grand Island and take Highway 2 and go through the sand hills. And that way they can kind of see the topography of our state, because it's just so different from east to west. It's not the same. You go from metropolitan to the cornfields, to the sandhills where the ranching and the cattle are, and then you get to the northwest area, and that's God's country out there. That's the Pine Ridge and Toadstool Park, where you see the Badlands and the bluffs of the Rocky Mountains. I mean, that's just the gorgeous, gorgeous part of our state.
Well, we're going to go to another gorgeous part. We're going to take our viewers right now to Crofton, Nebraska. If you've never been there, don't worry, we have Heidi Marsh. We're going to bring her in now. She joins us live via Zoom. Heidi, thank you so much for being here. Hey, for viewers who've never been to Crofton, what's important to know?
Well, first, you should come to Crofton right now, today, because we're a beautiful little town in northeast Nebraska. As you were saying, we're about 800 people, but we're nestled right in there by the beautiful Missouri River and Lewis and Clark Lake. We have the Gavins Point Dam just miles away. So it really is a nice little community that enjoys all the amenities of a riverside community.
Perfect. Now tell us about everyday life in Crofton.
Sure, sure. Well, I have little kids, so I like to start my mornings off at our sweet little new coffee shop in town. And we have great parks. We have a historic Pulley Museum and event space that we'll go hang out in. We have 2 schools that are wonderful schools. And then we usually hit up the hiking trails right out of town. My kids like to walk on, there's a Meridian hiking trail that connects Nebraska and South Dakota, or there's lots of hiking trails along the lake that we like to enjoy.
Okay, now 5 years ago, Crofton launched this dam race, right? How did that come about, Heidi?
It started with a group of volunteers, as does most everything in a small community. It starts with passionate volunteers. I was one of those volunteers that came about halfway through the planning stage to help with marketing. But it really was a group of people that identified the need for more of a connection between the lake and our community, because it's about 12 miles between the two. And so we wanted to create something that introduced people to our Lewis and Clark State Rec area, but then also to our community. And let's be honest, it was a fundraising event, or is a fundraising event. And so we were able to raise money these last 5 years towards recreational projects, which is really important to us.
Well, this is no small feat, right? You have 3 different events. You're kayaking with folks, right? You are running with folks, and you're biking. So tell us a little bit. We're going to put photos up for our viewers. Here's the first one. Talk to us about what's involved with this kayaking piece.
Sure. The kayak is by far the most popular part of our triathlon. It's considered a sprint triathlon. And this, I believe, is what really differentiates and draws people to our community and to our event, because it's not an open water swim, right? A lot of sprint triathlons are swimming. And this is so fun to just throw them in a kayak. They do a 1.5 mile kayak, which seems easy, but I think a lot of people are surprised. When you're out on Lewis and Clark Lake for a 1.5 miles, it's a good little paddle. But we have lots of safety boats on the water. We have lots of people on the water. And then you're right, there you go. They come in off the lake and they run into a 5K through our state park. Our Lewis and Clark State Rec area is just the best. And so we have a nice paved trail that 5K runs through.
Okay, and the final, biking.
Yeah, then they transition to the bike, and they get on those bikes, and you can see here, they do some pretty strenuous hills. Our biking, the first about 5 miles of it, are really challenging, very picturesque views, beautiful views of the lake. It's right along our lake road, and they bike all the way into Crofton. And then I have to tell you, Kathy, if you come ever, the finish line party is what really draws people to this event.
Heidi, why don't you tell us about the finish line party?
Yeah, I'd love to. If you don't mind, I'm going to tell you kind of how it came about too, because the first year that we did this race 5 years ago, my husband did it and fell in love with doing triathlons. He really thought it was pretty cool. So we started traveling to other triathlons, and most triathlons end with a tavern sandwich and maybe an ice cream cone, and they kind of send you out the door. And we realized really fast that there was an opportunity there to do something really fun, right? So we have live music. We have it's all on Main Street, Crofton, so we close off Main Street. And there's, a special dam race Bloody Mary that we serve, really good food. The Pulley Museum in Crofton does a really delicious meal for us. And so we feel really fortunate because I feel like our finish line party is kind of special.
Well, it all sounds great. I have to ask, how has this grown over the years?
Sometimes more than even we were prepared for. It's grown really fast. We started with about 60 racers that first year, which we were really happy with. And last year, we had nearly 300 racers. So it's grown really fast, but all in a good way. And we have plenty of volunteers. I'd say we have about 100 volunteers ready that day to get them water and keep them hydrated and make sure they're safe on the roads.
Heidi, are those volunteers, and volunteers are so incredibly important, are you finding that the majority of those folks are coming from the immediate area, or do you have people who are so psyched about this that they're coming from a little further away just to help you guys out that day?
Oh, we have people from the region. You're right, we do have people travel. There's a huge kayaking club in Vermilion, South Dakota that brings a whole crew of volunteers every year. This is a partnership with the Lewis and Clark State Rec Area, so Game and Parks. And so they bring a whole crew from Lincoln and from Ponca and Mahoney. So we've been really lucky to have support across the state.
What kind of feedback have you received from this? I don't know if you survey your participants or how it is that you're able to grow this, so successfully from year to year. But for the most part, if I ran into somebody, somewhere in the state and said, "What can you tell me about that?" How would they respond?
I think they'd probably tell you three things. I think they'd tell you that the volunteers are wonderful and welcoming and friendly. That's what we hear all the time. I think they'd tell you that it's fun, more fun than they've had ever, because it's really fun. But I think they'd also tell you that it just feels like they're giving to something that matters too. Our race, actually, all the proceeds go towards a walking, biking trail through our state park system. And so it feels like people are generous and want to be a part of it because it's something really good for our region.
Well, you've mentioned some of the benefits, but I would imagine, especially in a small town, when you are gearing up for something of that magnitude, just talk about the benefits to Crofton and maybe even the nearby areas with something like this.
Sure. I know that our lodging options and our restaurants all benefit. So, the economic benefit to our region is so good. But, I think what brings me the most joy is this week when I'm driving, back and forth between the state park and Crofton, there are people training. There are people who are taking their health seriously and training for this race. Our local bike shop has been so happy with this race because they are selling bikes and selling tires and selling equipment faster than they know what to do with. So I think the fact that we're just creating a really healthy, family-friendly option for our community is pretty cool. People really get behind that.
I am so glad that you brought up the training piece, because I think oftentimes, I'm sure we have viewers right now going, "Oh, I'd love to be a part of that, but I'm not even sure how to begin, from a training standpoint." So what I'd like to do is briefly just go through each of the three events. Talk to us a little bit, especially when I think of the kayaking piece. Do people bring all their own equipment? Is any of that supplied? So talk a little bit about the kayak and what the expectation is from an organizational standpoint. And then, Heidi, the training, because you mentioned it's 1.5 miles, and people think, "Oh, it's just 1.5 miles." But then once they're out on the water, they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is 1.5 miles." So talk about that a little bit.
Thanks. I'm happy to. First, I want to tell you that this definitely is a race for first-time racers. I told you my husband did it the first time. We welcome first-time racers. We think that's great. And we welcome elite racers. We think it's a good fit for everybody, as long as you're here to have fun. We're not if you're here for the prize money, it's probably not the race for you because there's no prize money. uh, but yes, that kayak part I think is the most enticing, but sometimes it takes people by surprise. Christy Christensen is from the Game and Parks Commission, and she has done a series of videos that helps people train for that kayak portion. And so you should go to our Facebook page because she recommends, things like how to push, you're supposed to push those, the paddles and not pull them because it's hard on your back. Work those upper body muscles, but it's really not arm muscles. It's even just your core, right? So train with your core because those are the things that are important with the kayak. We love it when people bring their own kayaks and their own equipment, but we also supply kayaks for people who don't have their own or who don't want to travel. We have people coming from California and, across the country, someone coming from Texas. And so we want them to feel like they don't have to haul a kayak with them. So actually there again, the Game and Parks has supplied 60 kayaks for us this year. So we'll have plenty of kayaks on the beach for you. Just bring your life jacket because that's one thing we do expect you to have.
No, that's great advice. Now for the run, talk a little bit about that and maybe some preparation.
Sure. I'd say start small. Start with half a mile and then grow into it. The nice part about the running is it's not very hilly. So, just easing into running is a really nice way to do it. I think the part about the run that surprises people is the kayak wears them out more than they realize. And then they jump right into that run. So that does surprise people. Wear and bring good shoes. If you're getting kayak, take that time to switch into run shoes because nobody likes to run with blisters.
Okay.
The third piece, you want me to go into biking?
Yes, please.
Now, this is where it gets a little tricky for our friends in Nebraska because we have hills like no other. Our elevation goes up and down pretty dramatically. And so it's hard for bikers to practice on hills, learning how to change gears and switch on hills. So I always advise people just really try a few hills before coming to our race because it is a little bit of a challenge. You're going to want a road bike too. Some people come with mountain bikes or different kind of bikes, but a nice road bike will go a long way.
Okay, perfect. Now this event is July 30th. I have to ask, is it always at the end of July or how does that work?
It is. It's always the last Saturday of July.
Okay, and the other thing I think we need to reassure the viewers is while it's a little bit difficult, the scenery just can't be beat, right, Heidi?
You're right. And along the way, we have 10 water stations with EMT crews along the way. So if you ever need to stop and take a break or just breathe a little bit, like I said, you're here for fun. So just get out there and do it. Our water stations even do themes. They're a little competitive. They compete for themes. So even they're having a lot of fun out there.
Yeah.
They'll take you.
I would imagine that with everything involved, you also have some folks on standby to help people if they get a little bit overheated or, that kind of thing too, correct?
We do. We're really well prepared. We have both the EMTs, fire department, state and county law enforcement. Yeah, we have plenty of people everywhere for you.
And Heidi, how soon do you have information on the website? So if people are watching and they're thinking, okay, yay, I've got a year to train for this thing, at what point should they log on and start to register for it?
Sure. Well, how about this is your New Year's resolution? Because we usually open registration in January because we love New Year's resolutions for the race. We have lots of families that do the race together, so they'll get together over Christmas and talk about it. Team for the triathlon, and so they will put together a three family member team at Christmas time.
Wow. Heidi Marsh telling us all about the Crofton Dam Race. We want to wish you the very best of luck. Thank you so much for joining us today. And who knows, maybe I'll be out there next year. We'll see how it shakes out.
start training. We'll be ready for you.
Thank you, Heidi. Best wishes.
Thank you.
All right, Shirley, I have to ask, so how much of this is really going on in the state where you have these small towns bringing in these big numbers of people, and not just people, but people excited to be a part of something like that?
Well, you know, it is something that goes on all across the state, and it's even getting more and more because a lot of the smaller communities, they're realizing that people in the cities, people out of state, they want to go somewhere where it's not populated. There's not a lot of people. They can be outdoors. They can be kind of by themselves if they want to be, but still enjoy the hospitality a small town offers them and the fun that they're going to have there, and they're going to wish, why didn't I come here before? Or where's the next little town that's going to have this great little event that I can go to? So it really is becoming really more popular. And those little towns, they just get so creative. I mean, who would have thought that a race like that would bring over 300 people? I mean, it just is kudos to those little towns that are being creative, and they've had to be, just so they can survive.
So we went to your website and we found 20 cities that you define as the larger cities in the state. They are in alphabetical order for our viewers, so in case you're looking for a particular city. But what I want to ask Shirley is, when we see the photo of the city, what comes to Shirley's mind as being, you know, the thing to do in that particular city? So let's go to our first city, Alliance. Go ahead, Shirley. What are you thinking?
Well, the first thing is Carhenge, of course, and it's a replica of Stonehenge. And Ashton Kutcher was there last week and brought it out to social media. So we really have gotten a lot of fun with that, having him being there. But it's a great place that you just need to go visit, and it's right off the highway.
Beatrice.
That is Homestead National Historical Park. And that is the place that in 1861, Daniel Freeman and the Homestead Act, that's how that came about.
You know your stuff. Brownville.
Brownville. That would be the Spirit of Brownville. You can take a cruise, you can take a dinner cruise or a sunset cruise on that boat down the Missouri River and kind of see some of the sights of Brownville and the surrounding area. So it's and then you can stop in Brownville and go to Whiskey Creek Winery afterwards and see how in an old barn how they've converted that to a great little winery for nice peaceful respite.
Okay, Chadron.
Chadron, that would be Chadron State Park. It's beautiful. It's the first state park. It's one of the oldest, so it's over 100 years old. And you can do horseback riding, jeep tours, get up on those bluffs, and you can just see for miles. And it's just beautiful, beautiful scenery.
All right, yeah. Columbus, Shirley.
Columbus. This is the Andrew Higgins Memorial, and it's right off the Highway 81, right when you get to the city limits of Columbus. And it's a great, one of those memorials that kind of give you thanks to those that serve.
All right, Crawford.
Toadstool is in Crawford. That's a good place. Also in Crawford is Fort Robinson State Park. And that is where you can go and have a cookout by the wagons, or you can go see the actual forts with the massacre that happened, the Indian massacre up there. So again, it's one of those places that great historical. We've got so much history in our state.
Moving on, Fremont.
Fremont. That would be the Fremont Lakes recreation area right there. You can get on a pontoon or an airboat, and you can go and they can take you on a tour up and down the lake on an airboat and show you different sites. And again, it's one of those great places, very relaxing. You can go fishing, kids can go swimming.
Grand Island.
Store Museum, and they have the village there, so you can go and see how they have people that do pioneers, and they do all the little workshops and things, so it's a great place.
Great. All right, Hastings.
This is where Kool-Aid was invented, 1927. Edwin Perkins in the kitchen of his mother.
Kearney, here we go.
The Arch, 20 years old. That arch has been there for 20 years. Talks about the history of the Oregon Trail.
Okay. And Lincoln.
The Capitol. It is the only building that was paid for by the time it was built in 10 years. It took 10 years to build it, and it was paid for by the taxpayers' money.
Wow. All right, on to McCook.
McCook, the Carnegie Library. There's only a few of them left in the state that they have refurbished, and they turn them into museums, and they're really, really very cool to have a Carnegie Library.
All right, Nebraska City.
Arbor Lodge, J. Sterling Morton,
All right, Norfolk.
Norfolk has beautiful parks. They're really redoing their downtown and their riverfront area, so it is really cool. Johnny Carson is from Norfolk, so you got to go visit his museum.
Okay, thank you. And North Platte.
Buffalo Bill Historical Park.
Ogallala.
Front Street. You can go there and you can see them do the dancing with the cowboys and the saloon girls.
Okay, all right. And of course, Omaha.
Omaha. You know, the new Jean Leahy Mall that just opened is just fantastic. It's going to be great for the kids, even families. It's going to be beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful place.
All right. And Scottsbluff.
Scottsbluff National Monument. Again, you can go up to the top of that. You can hike up there. It's only a little over a mile hike.
Okay. And let's see here. South Sioux City.
That is the bridge that links South Sioux to Iowa, to Sioux City in Iowa. And there's a Lewis and Clark museum there also. That
All
was
right.
a trail.
And last but not least, Valentine, Nebraska.
Smith Falls, one of our largest falls in the state. Beautiful.
That was pretty impressive getting through that in the time we had. I do want to ask one more question, though, while we have you here.
Okay.
Best kept secret in Nebraska?
Okay. Did you know in Potter, Nebraska, is where the Tin Roof Sundae originated? Potter, Nebraska. You have to go there, have a sundae.
My gosh, we're talking about the Crofton Dam Race today and all the other opportunities for Nebraskans with Shirley Wickman and Heidi Marsh. For folks wanting more information, visit Nebraska.com. And that's really the one associated with Shirley. The phone number for that is 402-471-7755. Now, folks wanting more information about Crofton's Dam Race can go to whatijustsaid.com. And Heidi's direct number is 605-660-4498. Again, Shirley Wickman and Heidi Marsh telling us all of the great stuff going on in this state. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your time and expertise.
It was fun. I
bet.
enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. And for those working behind the scenes. And of course, thanks to all of you for watching. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at nebraskapublicmedia.org/considerthis. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.